Good morning, guys. What's up? We got a video today. We had a dev update come out yesterday, and I didn't know that this was happening. So I instead made another video yesterday. So when this update dropped, I wasn't prepared to make the content for it. But we have it here now. We're gonna rip it right off the top. This is not pre-watched. I have no idea what this is about, other than what you can see in the title. Which is weapon balancing and power progression in the Cycle Frontier dev update. Down in the description down here, it says our creative director Ben and senior combat designer Michael sit down to discuss upcoming changes in weapons and power progression, and then a link to the game on Steam. So hey, let's get into it and let's see what's happening over here. Let's talk about and react to this video. Let's go.
Hey prospectors, I'm Dan, creative director on the Cycle Frontier.
Hello, and I'm Michel, senior combat designer on the Cycle Frontier as well.
And we are here today to talk about weapon balancing and power progression.
Now, weapon balancing has been the second biggest topic in the game, right? In terms of what you see on the Discord anyway, which seems to be like the most popular place for people to be talking about the game in an up-to-date fashion. So obviously the biggest concern is cheaters, right? And obviously every game has to deal with that, and it's going to take time. And yeah, it never feels good when somebody cheats on you. But you know, you have to give the devs time to work out. You have to not even just give the devs, but give the anti-cheat system time to learn, because that's how the system works, right? The more reports come in, the more the AI learns. The more the AI learns, the more efficient it'll become with banning and so on and so forth, right? So you gotta give it time. So this is on weapon balancing, which is going to be the second biggest topic that I see in the Discord. And obviously the major concern with that is that we have a lot of gray weapons, being like the trench shotgun and the bolt action rifle, and then even some green weapons, which is the next tier up, which would be like the bulldog and the manticore. Where those weapons are extremely strong at no cost, to nearly no cost, and they're able to shred through people in blue or purple armor, just not just as easily, but very close to just as easily as it would be if they had gray, green, or blue armor. A bolt action is going to kill somebody in white armor in 2 shots. It's going to kill somebody in blue armor in 2 shots, and same thing with the bulldog. Bulldog, I think you can even down purples in 2 shots. So the problem is that people who have progressed through the end game don't have a reason to use that high-end gear, because they're just going to get shredded on by newer players who are using white gear, or experienced players who are just using a bolt action and a shotgun, for no cost. So I'm down with them having like a flatter PvP curve and having it come down more to skill than it is to actual gun choice. But where that problem lies is that then nobody wants to use their high-end gear because it's so expensive, right? You can bring in a 400K loadout and get shredded on by somebody who's using a 20K loadout. And if you guys are of equal skill and he kills you with the 20K loadout, it just doesn't feel good, right? Because you lost a lot more than he lost in what was mostly a fair fight. So a little bit of balancing in that direction would be good, and hopefully maybe they talk about grenades too. Let's see.
We're here today to talk about our kind of high-level goals for these topics, what we're actually doing for the next patch and the upcoming ones, and lastly a little bit about our kind of strategy for how to tune weapons and balancing. So when it comes to power progression, our high-level goal is really about finding that sweet spot where getting better gear is something you want to do and you feel the impact of having better gear, but the disparity is not so great that you can't compete. So we want a person with maybe less good gear to be able to take down a top-geared player, but only if they play really, really smartly and, for example, ambushes them.
Right, that's good.
We've been on both sides of this balance. We've had it be too strong, we've had it be not impactful enough. We're trying to find that sweet spot, and I think right now we're getting closer. But are looking to increase the disparity a bit.
A tiny bit.
A tiny bit. We also get a lot of questions about pricing of late level gear, and this is something where it's tuned for the length of a full season. So we want you to be thinking about what gear to bring in and whether it's worth the money or not, and that of course changes depending on your income and your wealth. So here we're really taking our time and just checking how the season progresses as players get richer and richer.
Regarding power progression for the 1.3.5, which should happen very soon, we are looking into increasing kind of the effectiveness of the armor.
Wait, how do they do their updates? Do you say 1.3.5, which should be coming soon? No, the update we had a couple of days ago is 1.3.0. Oh, did I miss something? All right, we'll see. Maybe they go by 0.5s per update. I'm not sure.
At very high tier, so epic, exotic, and legendary, and same for the weapons. It will be a very slight change, but we're looking at basically what it will bring in terms of changing our data and feedback to see if it's enough or if you should do more in the future.
Another thing we really care about is all weapons having their distinct role in the game, and this is something that we continuously iterate on. Maybe you could tell us a bit about what we're doing for the next patch.
Yeah, one of the issues we have with current weapon is, for example, that the SMGs are a bit underpowered, obviously, because they are competing in situational effectiveness that is also the same as the ARs right now, and also the same as the shotguns, because shotguns are a bit too strong. At the same time, SMGs with a damage fall-off aren't really competing properly with the...
I do agree with this. But I do have a kind of a point to throw in here, and I have to say that I started using SMGs the other day because everybody said that they were so bad, and because we know that the nerf to shotguns is coming again, probably. So I wanted to get used to using SMGs because they talked about buffing SMGs and nerfing shotguns a little bit. So I wanted to kind of get into that flow. And I had a decked out PDW that I took from another player. Right, I killed him, and I used the PDW, the decked out PDW. It had purple pen and a silencer and and all the goodies on it. And I brought it into a raid with a bolt action with just the intention of losing it, right? Because I just wanted it out of my inventory. So I brought it in with the intention of losing it, and I ended up going like 23 kills over a span of 10 or so raids, 8 or 10 raids, and I didn't lose that gun. And I didn't end up losing it until I came up. I did a really stupid push against this guy with a bulldog, and he just double tapped me and I died. But that gun lasted me a long time, and I realized that okay, they're not really that bad. They're not as good as shotguns. And in all of those fights that I won with the SMG, I probably would have won a little bit easier if I just had a bulldog on my side instead of the PDW. But the PDW hipfire was able to close out those fights for me really easily. I wouldn't aim down sights with it, but hip firing with the PDW actually felt really good. And if they're getting a buff, I might really enjoy that type of gameplay because I really enjoyed playing like that. It was actually fun.
With the ARs, and we want to find a niche between these two types of weapons. So with next patch, we'll get the SMGs to be a bit more effective within their intended range by reducing their recoil and improving the mobility when you ADS with SMGs.
Mobility is huge.
Same thing as for the power progression change. It's not a big shift, but it should be enough to have an impact, and we'll observe and see how it affects how you play the game to see where we take it from there.
And what about shotguns?
So yeah, I was hinting at shotguns. Obviously, these are some of the weapons that are kind of most problematic for us. One of the main reasons is that the low-tier shotguns are, for the trench gun and the bulldog, are a bit too effective, which makes kind of the high-tier shotguns are less interesting because obviously they don't compete as much as we'd like them to do. And since they're very powerful, it overshadows SMGs that are also intended to be competing at the same intended range. The main change will be on the trench gun, reducing its damage so that it can't actually 2 shots blue armor anymore.
Huge.
It will require at least 3 shots. It will also make it so naturally the weapon will be less powerful. And the second change is on the bulldog to basically reduce its refire rate. So consecutive shots will be a bit harder to land.
Okay,
And
I'm fine. That sounds good.
The PK Monstrum, reducing the recoil to make it a bit more competitive, but at the same time increasing the spread
Speaking of refire rate, something we also get some feedback on is grenade spam.
This is huge. Anybody that's in the higher MMR bracket, or even now, it's started to trickle down into the lower buckets of MMR. The grenades are just out of this world. But this is a really easy fix for them, or at least it should be. We'll see what they say. But something as simple as just adding a little bit of a duration to the grenade pool, the pin pool part before you throw it, can be a huge change in the way the grenades function. Because I don't think it's a huge damage with the damage, a huge problem with the damage. Sorry, grenades are meant to do a lot of damage, right? If you sit on a grenade, you should take a lot of damage, maybe even die from it. And the radius, I don't think is crazy, though. I do think that sometimes what you see as the radius, the explosion, I do feel like the damage is a little bit higher than what the radius actually is sometimes. And this could be when there's a problem with elevation. I've noticed some things, but I don't think that they're out of control. It's just the spamming. You're able to throw grenades with like less than a 1 second cooldown. And that's just way, way too overpowered, especially when you have a trio. They all have, 4 or 5 grenades, and they are just raining hell down on you. So just adding some duration to that, or maybe even making it use a little bit of stamina or something, or a combination of those, could be huge.
Yeah, good transition actually. So yeah, that's definitely something we were looking into, having a delay between multiple grenades. So we are not set on a specific time right now, but it should be enough to allow players to get out of the range of the first grenade before the second one arrives.
Lastly, we just wanted to give you a bit of insight into how we're approaching weapon balancing and tuning now that we're live 24/7. So our really high-level goal there is to not swing metas.
I love that.
But rather make incremental improvements.
What we're looking for is really kind of making sure that if players are comfortable with the weapon, they can still play it for at least the duration of the current season. Big shift in the meta might happen, but not within a single season.
That's huge. I really do like that, because now it does cause a little bit of feel bads with the people who, I don't know, maybe they haven't been playing the game very long, or maybe they're just used to games that have like huge meta swings or something. But so when you're like, if you're in the Discord or on Reddit or whatever, and and somebody complains about, say, the trench shotgun, right, or let's use the Manticore because it's such a big subject. All right, so previous to the nerf, right? So you're in the Discord, somebody dies with the Manticore, they come in, all caps, nerf the Manticore, this shit OP, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And then you're like, hey, well, the devs talked about it. There was, they mentioned nerfing the Manticore, and the update comes out tomorrow, right? So Manticore gets nerfed. The next day they come back, oh, that nerf was shit. The Manticore's still OP, right? So that obviously happens when you do these small nerfs, right? But I think that is significantly better than doing these big swinging nerfs that potentially make just a weapon useless. I'd much rather them take the time and fine-tune each weapon a little bit at a time to get it where they want it, than to make these gigantic swings mid-season anyway. Now, like we're talking about here, if you're doing it between seasons, you're like, okay, well, the ARs have been in a huge tier 1 situation for quite a while. We're just going to nerf, ARs kind of across the board and swing up the meta a little bit. Cool. In between seasons, that's pretty rad. But mid-season, I'm down with small little tweaks to get things where they want them.
A big part of this is also making sure that we get to gather enough data during a season, because we're just now starting to see more and more people unlock weapons like the Gorgon and the Advocate.
Yeah, that's why we don't make a huge change in...
One quick one here. Take the Advocate's recoil and the Manticore's recoil and swap them. That, I swear, both guns would feel much better than they do right now. Well, the Manticore would technically feel worse, but people would feel better in terms of progression, right? So you have the Manticore, which has like almost no recoil, especially with attachments on it, and then you have the Advocate, which is supposed to be like the upgrade, right? It's a blue gun as opposed to a green gun, and the recoil is kind of out of control on it. Just give that recoil to the Manticore, and then put the lower recoil on the Advocate, and then both guns will feel a little more natural.
The kind of high tier weapons, because we don't have a lot of players actually playing them, mainly because some of the low tier weapons are also potentially too good, which makes
You don't have players using the high tier weapons because as soon as you bring those into a raid, a cheater comes and takes them. Let's be honest.
players not want to play the better ones. We feel not enough to make any change in the meta of the high tier weapons. That's why you won't see them for now, but it can and will probably happen in the future once more players get their hands on them.
Lastly, I just want to say, keep the feedback coming. We see it as a dialogue with you guys, and it's really an integral part of the process to iterate on weapon balancing. It is you giving this awesome feedback, so keep it coming.
All right. Well, hey, that's what we got there. It was kind of short. I was surprised.
So keep it coming.
But you know what? It was to the point. They talked. This is very important, and I said this in one of the previous videos. The communication between the devs and the community is going to be in this game a huge part of keeping players playing the game, right? So there's a lot of players that, you know, when they come in and, you know, they die to a cheater or something's like really overpowered, like grenades or whatever, which I just want to touch on. They mentioned being aware of grenades, but they didn't say anything about what they're actually going to do with grenades. But when these players go a long while without communication, they start to lose interest because they think that the devs aren't doing anything. You know, they're just sitting back and watching everybody suffer or something. And that's not the case, guys. But a little bit of communication with these short little 6-minute dev updates, that's huge. So that way when somebody is mad about a situation, you can direct them. If you're, you know, a helpful member of the community, you can help them, be like, hey, look, I see this problem, and you're right. It is really strong. This gun is really strong, but look at this dev update. They're aware of it, and they're gonna be fixing it here soon, right? So at least then the person's like, okay, they've heard my problem, and they're gonna work on it, right? So most people who aren't like insane would be happy with that, and hopefully these, you know, like 6-minute dev videos don't take too long for them to do. Also, one other thing that we see if you're coming from like the Path of Exile community at all, I don't imagine these have too much overlap. Maybe if you're a Zizarin fan, he would overlap these two games for you. But the devs in Path of Exile will hop on podcasts with some of the bigger names in the Path of Exile community, and they'll do a podcast and just answer questions from the Twitch chat, and it's just seeing their face, right? And knowing that they're a human that is there and is aware of the problems and they're working on it, you know, to make the game better. And it just makes people feel good, right? And gives people hope that these problems are being looked at. So that was it for that video, guys. That was the balance update. There's no date on when these updates are coming or anything like that, but this does give us a little bit of insight as to where they're going. They're aware of the grenade problem. They want to buff SMGs. They want to nerf the shotguns a little bit. And I think that all of those are perfectly fine things. And they're aware of the armor progression not feeling good. So they will be adjusting those numbers a little bit, which is going to feel great. We just have to wait for it to happen. And that's all we can do. Just play the game and wait. I will see you guys in there on the ground. Don't tell me you're friendly. I'm not falling for it. See you later. Adios, muchachos.